What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you for tuning in on this Wednesday, June 3rd. I finally can remember the date. At the end of May, I had no idea what day it was, but I'm very excited. An amazing chef, great thinker, a friend, Caroline Glover, who's chef owner of Annette Scratch to Table restaurant in Aurora, Colorado. Caroline, you're opening up right now, so I appreciate you taking some time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm sitting on the patio, which will hopefully host people tonight.
I mean, before we even get into your story right there, what does that feel like for you to be able to host people?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't sleep very well last night. I definitely have a lot of emotions. I'm somebody who carries it in my stomach, so it's been churning for the past 48 hours. It's super exciting, but it comes with a lot of weight too. And this is our first time, doing this, and I think we feel comfortable and we've come up with a good system, but you never know. Here we go.
You never know, and nobody knows. There's no like precedent. There's no playbook to look at for this. Like that. I'm excited for the notion. I can just imagine knowing how important hospitality is to you personally, to your team. Fuck, like getting people into your space again, and at the same time, there's going to be awkwardness. Like you just know the masks and all of it. People are not going to know what to do with their hands. Like so. It's going to take a lot of thoughtfulness and a lot of communication, which are two things I'm not concerned with you about at all. So let's take people back to the beginning. Where are you from, Caroline? And give us kind of some tidbits into like why and how you made your way into culinary.
Yeah, so I'm from College Station, Texas, which not many people know of, but Texas A&M is there.
Yeah, I was about to say if you're into college sports, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it. And I went to college for 2 years. I went to college in Fort Worth at Texas Christian University, and it just didn't. I just wasn't into it. It wasn't right for me, and so I moved to Yosemite National Park and worked at the Ahwahnee Hotel. And Percy Watley was in charge there, and I still think he is. And he was one of the most incredible humans I've ever worked for. We didn't really have that crazy. I mean, there was a brigade system, there was a union, there was all of this, all these things at the Ahwahnee Hotel, but I didn't really feel the culture of the kitchen necessarily. He just took care of all of us, and I've really never worked for somebody like that again. So he was a pretty incredible person to work for, and I met some guys out there that went to the Culinary Institute of America. They were on their externship, and I followed them back to Hyde Park, and I went to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, and then I got a job with April Bloomfield at the Spotted Pig right out of school, which is probably the biggest. She formed me and my restaurant and my thoughts on food, and it has stuck with me forever. And there's a lot of bad things surrounding the Spotted Pig, but to me the memories of it are formative. It was an incredible time. It was hard, but I learned to love food in a way that I never knew you could think and love food. Watching April cook was amazing. I got burnt out. I farmed. I met my future husband, and ended up back in Colorado by way of Paonia, then Carbondale, farming and cooking, and then came to Denver, and I started working at Acorn under Amos and Steve. And I was there for almost 3 years, and learned how to cook. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. So I'm interested in cooking with April and stuff. And like you said, so many iconic things happening there. There was a lot of turmoil happening there, but what restaurant does not have drama and turmoil? For you, it's your personal experience. And I think about what's happening right now. There's a lot of turmoil in a lot of different ways right now. Our personal experience and our nuance within like our truth is important. So for you, your truth was so formative. Also working for such a strong and iconic woman running a restaurant like that, that's at the highest level, the boys club, all of that plays into it. Did that play into kind of the restaurant that you're leading now, the way that you thought about what was possible in a restaurant?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, hi, Lon. We'll see you tonight. Sounds good.
Yes,
Sorry,
people.
Yeah, no, it absolutely did. I mean, I think it did in a few different ways. It did in the culture that I wanted at Annette, but also in the way that I cooked. You know, you take the good and the bad and you learn from it. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot of good. I also learned what I wanted a restaurant or a workplace to feel like, and a little bit more unified than it was there. And really any restaurant 10 years ago, back versus front of the house. So,
yep. Yeah, a lot of that front of house, back house, morning guy versus night guy, all that camaraderie and competition, and it brews animosity sometimes, for sure. So
yeah.
When you're thinking about Annette and you started this restaurant, you went about things very differently, pretty counter to probably anything that you had worked in before or seen models of before. So let's give people a little bit of setting the table. What about Annette is different from the way that you've structured your teams, your finances, and some of those? Give us some of the high level of what it is that Annette does that's very different in the industry.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the very first thing I set out to do is I wanted everybody to make the same pay, all my hourly guys. And so I made the decision from day one to split tips evenly, with front, back, support, lead, whatever, bartenders, anybody but management, basically.
Okay.
And the way we were able to legally do that is to pay everybody untipped minimum wage, which I believe is $12.30 an hour, something like that now.
Okay.
So everybody makes that base pay, and then it's a full split of the tips. When we were open for lunch, we split all day. Same with brunch, we split all day. And that just felt right to me. I didn't realize that it may cause some friction, which it did in the beginning.
Change is always hard, especially in our industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't even cross my mind. I just thought, our restaurant's so small that my host is just as important as my bartender. If my host isn't welcoming people and seeing the whole floor and fitting people in and, doing their job as effectively and efficiently as they can, then my servers aren't going to have tables, and they're not going to get 2 turns on a table or 3 turns. So I felt like there's an ecosystem, and every single person plays a part in it. And that's what I'm looking for our team. If you're somebody that comes on our team and you're not pulling your weight, I'm not going to fire you. My team's going to kick you out. Like it's all or nothing, it's, if you aren't here for the right reasons, I have a team that is here for the right reasons, and they really hold us accountable. And they hold my new hires accountable. It's not just me. And I think when you are sharing tips like that, it does give everybody, if they feel like they have a voice, if somebody's not pulling their weight, they're going to speak up. And so that's a little doggy dog, but it is what it is. Everybody wants to make sure that everybody's pulling their weight.
Yeah.
So
Makes sense. 2 things occur to me listening to you. One is, are the most talented people then not going to want to come work for you because you eat what you kill is like part of the mentality, especially in front of house when, one server may be making $114 and somebody else may be making $472. And the $472 is doing that because they're the best, right? And so I'm interested in that. So maybe address that a little bit. Was that important? Did you figure out how did that play into it? Because I'm sure there was some attrition, as you mentioned.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's been a really big part of, why people are saying, like, I don't think this will work for my restaurant because, I have these servers who are really know what they're doing. They're selling everything. But for us, we move everybody around in positions. So if you're a server, that's not the only job you do. You also host, you also backweight. If you're a very, very strong server and your sales show it and guests love you, then you're serving on those Friday, Saturday nights, or you get more hours. You're the opening server and you get to choose if you want to be the closing server. There's just, you get a little bit more say in your schedule, basically, when you're one of our best employees.
So there is still upward mobility, because that was part of the question too. Then is like, can somebody ascend, or once you're in, and then there's no motivation? So that's one of the ways that you're motivating. How else are you thinking about motivating the team to keep them focused? Since, I mean, selfish motivation is a strong motivation. Money and security, and it's a big motivation. Like, it'd be, obviously, that, and you've thought about that a lot. So how are you managing that aspect?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, before minimum wage started going up on a yearly basis, and I guess, I mean, we still kind of do this. Some of our lead servers get $1 more an hour on their base pay. And then also education, I think we constantly are holding wine classes or tours or asking people what do they want to learn about, and making sure that we're engaging everybody in that. So if you hosted 3 days of the week last week, you're still a part of that. You're still learning. And yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think for us, we've found that letting people kind of choose their hours. If they want to do a double on Saturday because they need more money and they're really strong, then they're getting the double on Saturday. It's just it's communication, right? Like, what a novel idea to communicate and listen and let people tell you what they need and want. Yeah.
So one of the other things that I thought was interesting, actually, I'll get back to that, because what you just said kind of struck me a little bit too. You've talked about your team. There's a small team knowing your restaurant. Do you think that this model scales? Have you thought about that at all, when you're like, how big could one restaurant get? Could we have multiple restaurants? Have you thought about scale at all?
Absolutely. And that is where I get stuck. I don't know what scale looks like. I know this works because I work here every single day. I know this works because my husband's here every single day. So we are pulling our weight with the tip pool, basically. It's important that we are working as much as we are, so the tips get, more evenly distributed. So, when I talk to people who aren't I mean, yeah, I don't know how this would work without us being here every single day. And that's a huge flaw. And that is something that we need to look into. I mean, as of right now, when the pandemic hit, like, I don't ever see a day where I'm not going to be here. Like, it's just, it doesn't feel real. But I also recognize that we can't be here every single day for the rest of our lives. I don't think so. So that's really our next, we need to look further. We're 3.5 years old, and I feel like we've just had our head down and we've just been grinding and going at it. And now we need to start looking up and saying, is this sustainable? Is this viable? Could we do other things? I'm a stickler. Like, I don't want to do anything else. Like, this is my baby. And, when people say, don't you want to open other places? It's like, absolutely, I don't. But with this pandemic, seeing if not being diversified hurts. That this is my only source of income. It's making me recognize that maybe I should say yes to more opportunities. But how do I do that while keeping this? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I want to get back to that point, because I think talking about resources is an interesting concept that I think you and I are going to talk a lot more about. But I want to go back to the team. If you're not pulling your weight, they'll fucking come after you, right? And I'm interested in that, as it feels like at a moment when it's working right, it's a strength. And so I want to let you address that. I also see the opportunity for it to get very cliquey, and then all of a sudden there's alphas who are like personally trying to dominate somebody else, and like they're not actually a bad server, but they convince everyone else that they are. That kind of like middle school drama politics that we in the industry are pretty bad about.
Totally. I would say my first year and a half, we had a huge issue with that. And I think it was also just opening a new restaurant. I know people know I was the owner, but I was in it, I was a part of the crew, and I wasn't good at pulling myself out and seeing who was the bully, who was teaming up on who. Was this necessary? I was too thick in it. And so we had a big meeting with our opening crew when it got bad. I mean, it got cliquey. People were throwing people under the bus, just constantly calling each other out. And we all sat down and said, fucking stop. If there's an issue right now, say it, because you're saying it to everybody else. And so we called everybody out, and it was a really hard meeting. But I think now I've gotten a little bit better at curating what we're looking for at Annette. And you can feel it when you do interviews. I sit in every single interview. I sit in with front of the house. I sit in with back of the house, everything. Because I am the mama bear. I am the mama of the ship. And so if I don't feel like they're going to jive with us, I don't care what your resume says. If you come in with an attitude, or I just feel like, you know what? I just don't think you're going to jive with this crew. It's not worth it. And so I think before this pandemic happened, we just had a really incredible crew. We had super, experienced people, very green people, but everybody really on the same page. And I really wasn't dealing with anybody telling on each other or calling each other out. I think I just started hiring kinder people, people that, exuded, they wanted to teach the greener people, and the greener people wanted to learn, and you just have to find the right fit. It's a puzzle, and we found it for a minute, and that was a beautiful thing.
Do you find yourself now needing to be, interestingly, less the mama bear in that scenario because the rest of your team are so quick to like cut out cancer? They're so quick to like pick somebody up, all of the dynamics that you've been trying to build that they now do before you even have to say anything?
Yeah, absolutely. When you have the right crew, you don't have to be involved in it, and yes, you're involved in it, but like in the nitty gritty, he said, she said, and I can feel it. I can feel when somebody's not being nice to somebody in my restaurant, and it's on purpose, or they're trying to gang up on each other. I can feel that. It's a small place, but whenever that's not happening, it's beautiful because I get to focus on cooking, and I get to focus on my kitchen and the guests, and it's just like this machine that just goes, and it is a good feeling.
Love it. So I want to do something interesting because you are finalist. Congratulations for a James Beard Award, Best Chef Mountain, and Dana Rodriguez, Carrie Baird, strong crew and strong like female leadership in Denver specifically it's palpable. You can definitely feel it and tell. And then Kelly Whitaker as well, and Bobby and the team at Frosca, like really strong operators. One of our friends, Josh Nuremberg, was a semifinalist, and I've said multiple times that he is my favorite chef and operator, and his restaurant is so brilliant because if it was in Denver, it'd be like a top 5 restaurant, and he's done it in Grand Junction. And we also kind of were like, does it matter that he wasn't a finalist? Was part of our conversation that he and I had was because we also feel like I want people in LA and New York in our industry who are like, living with 17 people in a walk-up studio apartment just to survive, to be in the industry, to go, I can move to Grand Junction or Denver even and work for a James Beard award-winning chef. Like it could shift the industry a little bit. And so I'm laying that groundwork because I'm interested in your model of restaurants. Like your food, it's fucking amazing. Like there's zero doubt about it. Your hospitality, when you're in there, you feel a sense of place. Absolutely. And that is deserving enough of an award nomination and or a win. However, what you're doing from a business standpoint, from developing your team, it's like, how do we get kindness, to your point, to be part of the equation on who is seen as the best in the business? I don't know if there's a question there, but I wanted to just throw that out and allow you to reflect on that because I'm sure you've thought about that yourself, knowing you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like our pay model starts the groundwork for that. Our pay model doesn't bring in necessarily the divas, the people who want, to sell the most and, you know, crush everybody in the ground. I mean, obviously that's I want, as a business owner, you want that, you know, you want people selling things. But I do think our model makes people think a bit more, and maybe it's a bit more forward thinking, just realizing that maybe not forever you're going to be making $50 an hour, you know, like I don't know. I don't think that that's a sustainable model, which is why we started ours. But I definitely think that doing equal pay just brings a different type of crowd in our door to apply here.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm excited about is like when somebody goes to your restaurant and having the open kitchen the way that you do. And when I think about who's nominating for James Beard or Michelin stars or Zagat, like any of those things, like one of the things I'm fascinated in is, can people feel not the level of just pure like hospitality or service and food, but feel the energy of the room, feel the energy of the team. Is there value? Can you quantify or qualify that to have that become a part of the equation? Because if it does, all of a sudden people are going to go, wait a minute, I'm more likely to win an award that is like the prestige in our industry because we preach and follow kindness. Like, how fucking cool would that be? Carolyn, how do we do that? Because it feels like you're doing that just intrinsically, but I really want that to become such an industry standard. Any thoughts on that?
Gosh, I mean, for people to keep helping, like, you know, it's funny. I feel like the majority of our guest space understands what we're doing without us having to say. You know, they see us working as a team. They see it. They see my kitchen watching everything. They see, you know, if we don't have a back weight that night, my host will water you, and they get it and they love it. And then there's a really small percentage that's like, that was confusing. Who's my server? Who's taking care of me? And so I feel like it's educating those people, saying, you know, we're a team, we're a system here. You know, there's a lot of things ingrained in restaurants, right? Like there's a lot of archaic ideas and the way that we should operate. So I feel like the more that we're transparent and let people know what we're doing, the more they'll understand it. The beautiful thing is most people feel it and they don't know why. Yeah, they're like, I don't know why that experience was so lovely, but it was. And in my mind, it's like, because you were so well taken care of. Every single person in my restaurant that was working was also working towards one goal for you to have a great experience. And that's different than just one person working towards it, you know?
I love it. Hold on, I just got the text from the boss. Sounds a little wonky. Let me reset real quick and then we'll wrap this up. So I could not love what you're saying anymore, talking about how they just feel it, right? And that's not on accident. That is very much thoughtfully curated by design, by everything that you've done, everything that we've talked about, and the way that you're organizing your restaurant. I think about this in your restaurant, and then just thinking about James Beard, also thinking about Kelly Whitaker, I think specifically for Wolf's Taylor. But I remember, and I tell people all the time about an experience 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe at Basta, where we were there Sunday night, Betsy and I remember some other people. Anyway, there were 7 people on the floor, and all 7 people touched our table at some point. And I made a point. I was like, did you just see that? Like I was waiting. We were like 10 minutes from leaving, and that we had gotten 6. And then the 7th person came over. I was like, they fucking did it. And everyone was like, what are you talking about? Like I had been waiting for that moment, and everyone was like, you're a nut. You just screamed in the middle of this restaurant. Having been to your restaurant as well, it was the same kind of thing where like it just was this flow. It was always what I needed, not the structure of where your section is type scenario. And so how do you keep that going? Because it's easy for people to like say, oh, what's your section? It's the whole restaurant. Ha ha ha. Like as this colloquial thing that we say, but how do you do it in process?
Yeah, I mean, it can get hard, you know, like there are times where I had servers be like, I'm confused, who's touched my table? I don't want to, you know, we don't want it to be touched too much. But what it came down to was just talking to each other. I mean, it's crazy how much you don't talk to each other, right? Like in the middle of service. And so it was like, look up, if you touch that table, just go let the server know. Or, you know, my kitchen will jump out, you know, if they see that somebody needs work, my my saute cook, my garm cook will jump out, go get a fork and put it on the table and just walk right back, because they also want the person to have a great experience, because if they have a good experience, they tip well and they make more money. So it was, I mean, you have to put ego aside in this scenario. Like there's no prima donna. There's no room for it. You have to communicate and you have to want to all be working towards the same goal. And that's hard to do. But when you get the right crew to do it, it's a beautiful thing.
Oh, Sophie, make sure we quote Caroline there with the kitchen jumps out. So important. I'm going to lay down this. This will be the last thing because I'm interested. I'm pretty sure that this happens and has happened in your restaurant. I remember the Tag restaurant days when we first started, the open kitchen, the long dining room, and the bathroom downstairs, down an elevator downstairs. And people would walk back with this clumsy, lost look. They'd walk into the kitchen all the time, would walk all the way to the back line of the kitchen before they realized they were not going to the bathroom. And cooks would like gawk at them and be like, this fucking idiot over here. I was like, you know what? The second you see somebody walking towards the kitchen with that deer in the headlight look, you go from your station and you run to the dining room and you walk them all the way to the elevator and you push the elevator button for them and you thank them for being here tonight. And that became a part of the culture. Then we created competition because we love competition. And they would start to be like, who could be the first person to get to the person to walk them to the stairs? Because they know, I don't care how well you made that miso cod. I care how much you spent time interacting with our guests. Your bathrooms are out of your building practically. You got to walk down because you're in the Stanley Marketplace. You're in a shared space there, multi-unit type scenario, kind of food hall-ish type thing, trying to awkwardly set the table for people. Have your team and or your kitchen specifically walked people to the restroom out your guys' door down the hall?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that anytime somebody looks like they're confused or wandering around, whoever is next to them is responsible. And if my garden cook sees it happening and she can't get down there, she'll be like, hey, Caroline, they don't know what they're doing. Can you help them out? And it's like, yes, thank you. It's an extra pair of eyes.
I love it. That was it. We're ending this show with a trip to the bathroom, the weirdest place we could possibly end, but it matters. It so matters. That moment, I bet, as a chef, as an owner, as a human, when somebody says our guest needs the restroom and like calls upon somebody else or is doing anything they can for that moment, it's the single most important way that we can interact with people in a restaurant. I truly believe that. I know you do as well. So thanks for sharing that with us. I really appreciate it. I'm excited for what's happening with you from a business standpoint. Again, congrats on the nomination. I know that means a lot because it is not you, it's your team, and you really embody that. And it's been good to see what's going to happen next coming out of this, even though it's scary. But I'm excited that people are going to be on that patio. Please take a picture. Actually, will you do this for me? Take a picture and share it back into the comments of this video because I want people to see that because I think it's important.
Absolutely. I will happily do that.
All right, Caroline, have a great service. It feels really good to tell you that. Have a great service today.
Thank you. We're excited.